working at work. Like, it felt nice to be able to control and actually make things that, that we had a say in, rather than, I just go to work and then I do this and then I repeat it and do it over and over again. And the crazy thing is that ended up being the game, like, exposing that part.
Yeah.
It do be like that, man.
So I guess it was therapeutic. Like, it was a lot of work, but I would say it was worth it because a lot of people did like our game. I mean, did you guys see the rankings? Like, what we got?
Well,
actually, no, I didn't.
We did pretty good, like, for this, honestly, because there was like 1,000 or so games or something.
Yeah, a little bit more than 1,000, I think.
We did good. Like, I remember on sound design and like music, we got like 400 something out of 1,000. Yeah, so
It's not bad.
we're on the above 50 percentile. So I mean, that's not bad at all.
Yeah.
Can we do better? Yeah, we can always do better.
Yeah.
Right? But the small victories here and there is always pleasant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this was the first time I'd ever actually gotten followers on my itch.io page.
No, see?
Yeah, I had 3 people follow from this post, which I thought was kind of interesting. Like, nobody had done that in previous game jams.
All right, so you know what we got? Now we have to pick up the pace and actually create more things.
Right? Yeah, no, I feel like it's oh no, people expect things.
Our YouTube channel got traffic too.
Right? I'm sure that's a big contributor as to why.
Yeah.
Because I mean, one of the followers came after the jam was completely over, voting was done and everything. And then I got a random email being hey, somebody followed you. It's oh,
that's
okay.
Nice. Yeah, that's nice.
Right? Yeah, I'll take it. But that was definitely unexpected.
It's Josh, you got fans.
Yeah. I know.
Those are your day one.
Yeah, actually, I'm gonna pull this up. Wait a minute. I literally just pulled up my page on my phone, and it literally says somebody followed me yesterday.
Nice, dude. Look at that.
Look at that.
That's kind of crazy. But yeah, I want to look at the rankings because, like you said, I hadn't actually checked them out. So to see if I can actually manage to open up the information from that here, because I have a hard time navigating back to the ratings page. Mm-hmm. Once the jam's over, that page kind of becomes less accessible.
Yeah, it becomes obsolete.
But I do want to see all that stuff.
Yeah, based on what I saw, I thought we did really good.
Yeah. That's always pleasant.
Yeah. Yeah, it was definitely... okay, here we go. Here results.
Okay, what's our overall...
Oh, wait, hold on. There's got to be a your submission, because this is just showing everything. Yeah, there were 1,644 entries submitted for this.
Okay, it's pretty good. Making an even 1,000.
I don't know if there's actually a see your own
ranking.
Game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be looking through that.
Okay.
So, all right. So I did most of the programming though for this game. So that means Jose, you get to do all of the programming for the next one.
Are we gonna do another game jam? Because you already explicitly said.
Yeah, no.
Let's not do any more game jam.
I mean, you're right. I did say that.
But I mean, I'm not opposed to it, right? Because I feel like you get every time you do one, you figure out what your limitations are, and I think that's a good segue into what game jams and development can do for you. Is that every time you do one, you know exactly what you can and can't do based on your previous experience. And I think we managed to do a lot with just this one.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's not really a toss on the hat where it's if we do another one, it's going to be hell. And it's if we do another one, it's more of a finessing thing as opposed to, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing.
Yeah.
So there's always that pleasant, trait
if we do another one, I'm definitely taking off Monday after the Sunday that everything's due.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that would be pleasant.
Okay, here we go. Finally found the thing.
All right, he's found something.
You found it?
Yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, overall it was rated at 638, so we were still, like, in the top, almost third-ish.
Yeah.
A little under, but yeah, so that's not too bad.
It could be significantly worse, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the audio was definitely rated the best at 475.
475.
Innovation at 512. Theme at 550.
Oh, wow.
You know, I'm gonna be perfectly honest.
Where was the thing where we slacked at?
This one irritates me actually a little bit.
Okay.
I mean, it's still not bad because I think it's still like almost at like the even 50%.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people like bitched about the graphics. I mean, I understand that they're hand-drawn. But like, I cannot tell you how many games that I came across where people's characters were literally just like stock squares.
Yeah, it's like, sure, you know what we can do? We can get a lot of assets, right? We can get a lot of pixel assets and a lot of animation sprites. We can do all of that, but it's like, well, that kind of takes out some fun of doing it because now you get to make silly little cartoons.
Yeah, this goes back to one of the things that I was saying about like game jams in general prior to this jam even starting, is that a lot of people go on to like asset packs and such and they just download those. So that's where all the graphics come in. But I feel like a lot of people who rate the games don't really kind of factor that in. They're just like, oh, this is pretty, and then they'll rate the graphics as really good. But when the person didn't make any of those graphics, like I personally have a hard time rating those things as having good graphics because they weren't produced by the person who made the jam, so it doesn't feel, genuine to give, top scores for that.
Yeah.
For someone else's work, basically.
Yeah, exactly. You're taking somebody else's work and then putting it into your game, and then people are rating you 5 stars because, you downloaded, or some people I know even paid for like, graphics packs and sound design packs to put into their game jam games. It's like, I don't know. I feel like that misses the spirit of, making a game jam. Even
within
if you do
the
have
time
to
frame.
have, silly little hand design stuff. Like, I mean, I'm not, and I said, there was a lot of people who use, like, base, like, square sprites or whatever. I'm not even knocking that. Like, I get it. Like, a lot of people don't have much time to do things.
Yeah.
So if that's what's best to use, I would rather see somebody do that than have imported an asset pack. And this is just personal opinion. I'm sure plenty of people will disagree with me on this.
Yeah.
But at that point, I at least feel like this is still entirely the product of the developer.
Yeah.
Rather than this is the product of the developer and the Unity asset store.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Like, you shouldn't harshly put a negative score if somebody did it on their own because that was the whole point.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, one guy even pointed out that, like, the minimalistic graphics almost fit the tone of the game.
Yeah.
It was, very, black and white, mundane, but I mean,
Because they said not real. They said not real.
Yeah, exactly. They said not real. And I mean, I know not a lot of people got to, certain parts of the game. Like, honestly, from at least the playthroughs that I seen, day 2 was a big hang up. So not a lot of people may have seen the third day, which honestly was where, in my opinion, the coolest like rooms were graphically, just like with like custom animations for like specific rooms and such. And then like, the final camera work of the, finishing scene and whatnot.
Yeah,
which,
and the maze.
Yeah, the back half of the game was kind of where a lot of the at least cinematography went. So
I'd like to point out where it's like, it's not always about the graphics, We're fucking 3 developers working on a single game. We don't have a team of 10, 10, 10, all right? Like, there's some weird sense of standard that doesn't really apply to everyone.
Yeah.
To say that this game doesn't really have good graphics in context to what? Another person that has great graphics? I mean, like, you kind of have to take it as it is by itself, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny because I seen in one of the guy who didn't figure out our game. I wanted to see how he did for at least some other games. So I watched him play another game, which was incredibly long. And then, like, when he beat it, you know, he even commented, he's like, you know, normally these things are just like little indie things that, you know, are put together in a week. Why is this so huge? And then they get to the credits, and there was like over a dozen people who worked on it. Not to mention all of like the assets they were just Gary's models.
Oh, okay.
So it's like they basically just constructed that, and it's like, man, there was over a dozen people who worked on this.
And that's fine, you know what?
Fine.
If you get a team and you all can work on that one thing together, that's great.
Yeah.
But you can't expect that from everyone because everyone doesn't have that type of opportunity.
Yeah, I didn't actually look into it on this particular like jam in terms of like not rules. It was never a rule, but it was a suggestion, at least in the last one, that teams not be bigger than 4 people.
Oh, for the last one? That's interesting.
Yeah. I don't know if that's just like a standard thing that they put. I didn't bother reading through all of the information page for this game jam.
Probably for logistic purposes.
Projects where there was a lot of people on it, so it's like that's
cool. I wish we had. We had a lot of people to work on our stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. It is just kind of funny though when you're comparing, you know, people who do, you know, where it was literally one person, you know, being in the same pool as, you know, okay, you're going against an actual team.
Right? Like,
yeah, and
tit for
again,
tat.
that just goes back to like the whole thing where it's like, you know, the ratings don't really matter and that people should just do this as a learning experience.
Yeah, it's all about the friendships you made along the way.
Yeah, sometimes people just get too judgy about like, oh, you didn't make this graphically interesting enough. It's like, bro, you don't know who or how many people did this, what kind of like, you know, experience they have.
How fighting Unity itself is a challenge.
Yeah,
no kidding. It's like custom animations at all can be like a big, you know, time sink for people. Which is why I understand that a lot of single person developers don't bother.
Yeah.
Like it takes so much time. I know I've hand drawn so many spreadsheets that it's like
unpleasant.
Yeah, I was so happy to not even have to do that for this one because that took so many hours of, you know, previous game jams out of me just to do that. But yeah, I don't know. It was, I think overall, like, in spite of the fact that some people, you know, didn't seem to take to the graphics very much, which I think I'm mostly just sad about that because I really liked the look of the game.
Yeah, thematically, in terms of what the game was, right? It at least fit it. We're not going for some high fidelity 4K graphics about this really sad story. No, we're gonna make a really sad story with really sad graphics. You know, like at least it matches.
I mean, if you go into my psyche, if this game is based on me, you will basically see the world through my eyes, like how things look not that great, like when you're actually there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's the most disheartening thing for me is just the fact that, you know, when people don't really seem to put, you know, the source of some of the assets together. Same with music. Like, I mean, we were rated well on music, and understandably so. You know, you obviously put in a ton of effort into that.
You guys pushed me on that, though. You were like, no, it needs to be more. Like,
because all right, if there's anything I can do, it's like I can critique things with very, what would you say?
You were honest. You're upfront. You're like, John, you gotta go sadder.
I'm honest with you. It's like sometimes you made something a little too hip hoppy or poppy or whatever.
Yeah, you like your trap beats.
If they look how many takes there are for each track. But
dude, I told you I showed your stuff to one of my coworkers who also does like music stuff.
Yeah.
And he was listening. He's like, I really like this. He's like, you can definitely tell that he likes, you know, that trap snare. He's like, that's his favorite instrument.
Where is this instrument? Where is this damn thing? I would say with this project, I got my money's worth out of this.
Nice. Okay.
But I mean, that's probably out of the 5 records I've done so far, I would say this one was probably the most cohesive and aligned. Because it actually went around the theme. Because you guys kept pushing me saying, John, this is too... You said, quote, this is a bop. This is not what we're going for.
Yeah, we need somber backdrop, and this is like boppy, hip hop, ready to drop a rap beat.
And then,
not like I'm not against it,
It's still perfectly good music. It just doesn't fit the theme.
But this is also the first record and the first time I actually had to go outside. Well, second time I had to go outside to record ambient sounds for things like to get the crowds. Like I went into a McDonald's to get the office sounds. Yeah, because work was too quiet. I was like, damn, there's no sound here. So we got to go somewhere where there's sound. And then the door sound, I had to go find a door to open that actually sounded like a door because my door is too quiet. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it made me learn a lot about sound design and certain files and how the length of the file has to be to actually work when like you guys do your programming to actually interact with stuff.
Yeah, because the original door clip was like almost 5 seconds long.
Yeah.
Which, when you're going through just the door real quick, it's a little bit long for that.
Mm-hmm. I really liked the printer, the fax machine fight and animation with the attacks and everything.
Yeah, I really wish that I had been able to get that to do really what I want to. Because, I mean, it just kind of jumps in the middle of the screen, which does give you, like, a situation of you have to, like, know when to go in and hit it and then back off to not take damage and whatnot. Like, it does add a little bit of level of difficulty. The intention was for it to jump around the room, but the way I set up the animations, it didn't really do that. I should have just done it completely in code, but I tried to use the Unity animator, and the way that works is that oftentimes, like, if you do, like, a position adjustment, it'll always kind of lock to that same spot. So even though I put like a parent object which was supposed to like move around, anytime it would go into the animation, all of like the model and hitbox and everything, basically all the meat of the fax machine would snap right back to the center, even though technically the parent object wanted to go all over the room.
Yeah.
So it ultimately didn't matter at all. It just stayed stationary. I should have not even touched the animator for that part, because then I might have actually been able to get it to jump around the room. But at that point, it honestly might have made things more frustrating.
Yeah.
Like, as it was, that was already something that, some people were having a hard time with. Or maybe not even the fax machine itself. I know, like, at least one guy didn't figure out to kick it.
Oh, yeah.
He just, like, that was the end of that run. But then there was just, the people who didn't think to sprint when it came to, like, the monster showing up, who weren't good at evading or whatever it may have been. Like, they ended up having to fight the fax machine multiple times in order to get through the day.
But they did figure it out.
Yeah, they did figure it out.
Okay.
But it was... I understand that if it had been jumping around the room and just made it that much more irritating, that would have been, another point of frustration. I mean, as it was, I pity the people who had to listen to that dial-up sound more than twice. Like, when I was playtesting, I cannot tell you how many times I would interact with the thing to make sure it works and just hear that sound, and it's just like, oh my god, okay, here we go again. Also, I cannot understand how so many people, because both of the guys who I watched, who did videos on our game, they both encountered the same glitch, and it happened to them, I think, multiple times each. And I swear this never happened to me during playtesting. It was so weird, but everybody encountered it so consistently. When they would beat the fax machine, the music wouldn't stop and like reset back to like the standard office sounds, and the thing would still keep on like jumping around and doing its thing like it was still alive. It was so strange. Like, it didn't actually properly like die. Yeah, it kept going even though it was clearly beaten.
Yeah.
So that was really frustrating to see, because it's like, I tested this game like 20 times. How did this not happen to me?
It's okay, thematically it's alright.
I guess. It really breaks the ambiance, because the music doesn't change until you go back through enough rooms to trigger like the monster scene again.
Yeah.
That overwrites it, but the fax machine is still jumping around in his room because it's not in a separate scene, and it still has hold of the audio source. So anytime it jumps, you still hear it clanging about in the other room.
I feel like
Yeah.
that's not bad.
But
That could be worse, right?
I saw that too. I was confused.
That was one of the biggest irritations that I had about just the product of the game. It's like I looked at that. It's like that drives me as the maker of it crazy that it does that.
Yeah.
They found a way to not kill the fax machine.
Right? Yeah, it's like suddenly the fax machine was immortal. Yeah, I mean, there was that. What other parts? Because, I mean, one of the playthroughs that I watched was much more informative to me as to, like, things that should have been ironed out a little bit better. One of them I knew of, and I had done a bit of work to mitigate it, but clearly it wasn't perfect, was, like, the way that going through doors worked.
Yeah, that was a pain in the ass to deal with at the end.
Well, it was, like, mainly in the base construction of the area, like, of the normal office. The way that the doors were programmed was that there was an equation which would take your current position when you interacted with it and then basically subtract your position from a target position where the door would let out at and basically just set your position to that new value.
Okay.
The problem was that the hitbox for the doors, it wasn't a single point. And wherever you could be standing in multiple areas and still interact with the door from that spot. So if you were too far below the door, if the door was above you, or too far above it, if it was a lower door, it could move you in a way where you actually ended up behind the hitbox of the wall. So you were like on the outside of the room. And I know that happened to a couple people at least once during their playthroughs. You could still interact with the door that you basically didn't fully make it through. So it was an easy fix, but it was just it was bad form.
Yeah.
I ended up finding out later that I could have just made it put you in a very specific point rather than doing the whole math thing. The way I had originally tried to do it didn't work, but I found a way to do it later on. But at that point, the doors were already implemented, and I wasn't going to rewrite all the code for it. But yeah, that was another thing that could have been done better for sure. Anytime somebody went into the stairwell to try to evade the monster, that was not programmed well for the monster being in that room.
Yeah.
I wanted to set up the shape of the stairs to be like its own tile map that would have excluded that as a navigable area for the monster's AI path to travel along. So that way it would have had to chase you down the stairs. But instead it could basically just go straight down, which made it almost impossible to get away from. That wasn't good. And then the last thing that really stuck out to me, and I knew that this was a thing because I'd originally tried to program it so that this wasn't a problem, but it just didn't work for some reason. But whenever the monster touched you, that was when you would take damage. But it was an on-trigger enter call for when it dealt damage, which means as long as you stayed inside of it, it could walk on you the entire level, and you would only take that single instance of damage.
So when it refreshed...
Yeah, so one of the guys who I was watching, he was doing better, but still didn't know to run. The monster kept perfect pace with him. So it was just sitting on top of him as he was going through the level. As long as he didn't go into another room, there was no instance of it turning off and back on. Since, other than the third day, the second day was not the same monster that followed you each time. It would just turn on and off depending on what room you were in, and there was basically a separate monster for each room, functionally, that acted like the same one as to chase you through the doors, because it was basically you would walk through a door, and as long as it was, night mode, the monster would turn off or turn on after like a second, and then when you would leave, it would turn itself off and then turn on in the other room. But it was always something separate. But as long as you didn't leave that room, the monster could stand on you for the entire duration of night mode, and you would only take 1 point of damage.
Yeah.
So that was... I originally had it set up so that when it touched you, the box collider would turn off. It would start a coroutine for whatever cooldown of taking damage, and then it would turn on again and hit you again. But I don't know why that didn't work, and I didn't bother. Like I wanted to get through to others, finishing the game basically, rather than figuring out why that was happening.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I had to remove it. That was the fix. It's just it didn't work, and I didn't have time to fully implement it. Yeah, those were probably my biggest gripes with the game. I think everything else tended to function pretty well. I mean, there were a couple. Oh no, that's right. There were a couple of things with the dialogue boxes.
Yeah.
They were so in the Unity Inspector, you could type in all the text, and it had a box that you could type into, but that box didn't match what was on the screen. But it was hard to tell, like, without going into play mode, whether or not like the dialogue fit fully. And I think the resolution might have changed that a little bit too, as to what did and didn't fit. So there were some situations in which people would say something and some of the dialogue would get cut off, and it made what they had to say a little bit awkward. I also had one character, I accidentally had one character call a single character by two names. So just like little mistakes like that. Those are definitely things that I want to keep in mind for like what to make sure I don't do in the future. Because, these, as I've said many times, game jams are for learning. And that was definitely
A learning.
Yeah, that was definitely a learning. Yeah, I mean, I'm glad we did this for sure. Like, I actually think it was probably the most productive game jam we've done. Because this was the first time where we really had to pull a lot of resources from each other and, like, put all of it together into a single project. Like, we did Canvas, which was a lot of people. I mean, I knew nobody was going to get that joke, but some people were very confused when they talked to the guy who talked about it, and they're like, what are you on about?
Yeah.
Like, for anybody who happened to play the game and seen somebody talking about, that game, Empty Canvases, that was our previous game jam game that almost everybody said was too hard. Like, that was our number one piece of feedback was, cool looking game, can't beat it.
We'll put a link to that game on the video.
Yeah. Go in and try to beat the game.
The Easter egg.
I even released another version of the game and linked it on the main page for people who were having a hard time with the original release. That made it significantly easier, and I still think some people didn't even manage on that version.
Yeah.
But that version was way easier.
I feel like, so we're going to keep making stuff. We're obviously going to keep pulling from the other games, always, forever.
You want to have all of our games in a consistent universe, always?
I do. I think so. I think so.
I kind of like that. I like that, yeah.
It's an Easter egg. While this video is hidden in the annals of YouTube history, and no one will ever watch it, this will be the only time we'll ever speak of it.
Yes. We will have an Easter egg.
Jose, you say that, but you know what's funny is that there are videos that I edited when I was like 14, 15, and people downloaded them and reposted them themselves. And these people have gotten like 500,000 views each from it. And I sit at home like, what the hell? Like, I just did that on an old Windows XP computer after school. And I got like 100 views. But then you got 500,000. What the hell?
Damn, copyright strike that, get your revenue.
Like, I just sit there, it's like, at least somebody enjoyed it, but damn. I mean,
So what do we want to do next? That's the real question. I've been having some issues. Well, not really issues, but some introspection where it's like I've been working on some stuff I want to do I'm doing by myself, but what do we want to do as a group?
Yeah, getting in the game jam like mode really got us like in the swing of working together, which is great, and another reason why people should definitely like try to do that. But yeah, once you're done, then you're like, well, damn, now I feel like I need another project to do.
Yeah.
What do we do next?
Because I have maybe like 4 game ideas. I would say 2 of them are complex, and then the other 2 are simple.
Yeah, I have so many game ideas. It's kind
Yeah.
of absurd. It's gonna like I almost feel like I need to just write them down and pull them out in a hat.
Yeah.
Like, I think the simplest one I have is for a game called Run, Don't Walk. And it's basically a 2D side scroller where the game is like scrolling for you and you just have to keep avoiding and running. But like the thing is that as you're running and avoiding these obstacles, you see like funny either images or sayings that'll make you laugh and you lose concentration and fuck up.
Oh yeah, I have like little quotes on the back wall that you want to like stop and read, but you don't have time to. Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, so it's like a side scroller distraction.
You mentioned that title just like in response to people like not seeming to realize that you could run in the game. So it's like, yeah, we're gonna make a whole game that just tells you, hey, run.
Run, yes, just run.
That was another thing though, like with the monster first appearing like in the first chase sequence and in the fax machine fight, I do think it would have been a good cue, and I had even thought about this when making the game. I just never implemented it. Like I forgot about it by the time I had time to do it, which really I didn't have that much time. But unlike my first game jam where I posted 43 seconds before the game jam closed, this one I posted more like 43 minutes. So I could have probably found a way to implement it, but just have like a little thing that pops up saying run or fight, just a single word prompts to tell people, hey, this is what you should be doing in this scenario. Like that's
reasonable.
Yeah,
it's a very reasonable thing to do.
Like it's so hard to divorce yourself from the knowledge that you have as a developer for what you're supposed to do in your game's mission. Like you know where to go. You know where all the key items are. You know how to use them. You know all the controls. And you know what each scenario expects from you. Mm-hmm. And even when you try to make it obvious, like, I thought the way we had the fax machine set up was very clearly a boss fight.
Yeah.
Or just a fight.
Or just a fight.
Yeah, just a fight, bro.
Yeah, it doesn't even need to be a boss fight. It's a combat environment. And there were plenty of people who did just try to walk away from it.
They're like, no.
No. They interacted with it, and the thing jumped into the middle of the room and started spewing ink everywhere, and the fight music went on, and they were like, walk away now.
But can they?
Yeah, that's another thing.
Yes.
Lock the room. You gotta lock the room.
I should have locked the door. If I had locked the door, that whole problem would have gone away, but I didn't do that. Again, just more things that you learn. Like, this is why watching people who have not been a part of the development process play the game is super important for knowing how the game reads.
Because do you think like part of it is like thinking, maybe it's intuitive, and then you don't want to be too hand-holdy, because it's kind of like what happened with Pokemon Sun and Moon. It was like, I know how to play Pokemon. Like, you don't have to tell me every second how to do something.
Right, yeah, it's like, I understand. Yeah, telling me the very, very basics. Do it. The tutorial should be done, in a game like Pokemon, you should be done the tutorial in like 5 minutes. Not 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I understand. Because I felt the same way when I played that game. Like, I mean, I've played almost all of the Pokemon games, and it starts to get very frustrating as you go deeper and deeper into the generations when Pokemon has become more and more of an established IP, and thus most people are not playing it for the first time anymore. But even for the people who are, I understand you do need to have that, hey, this is how the game works.
Mm-hmm.
You can't gatekeep new people by the assumption of everybody knows how to play this, but at the same time, it's not that complicated.
Well, there's also the fact that in a bunch of other games, they give you a prompt, right?
Yeah.
There are at least a decent amount of games where it's like, hey, do you want to know how to do this?
Mm-hmm.
And then if you say no, you get to just walk by your way.
Right. I mean, all you have to do is look back to the first generation.
Yeah.
When nobody knew what to do. You stepped in the tall grass and they were like, hey, don't do that. You're going to get beat up. Here, take a Pokemon. Now you can go in there.
Mm-hmm.
You get into a fight, you only have so many options. You have to figure out how to do it. And there's, it's like the Mega Man situation that you were talking about where there's only so many options. So you're just going to try them until you succeed.
Yeah.
Then, you find the grouchy old man who's like, this is how you throw a Pokeball. Boom. Okay. Carry on with your life.
Oh, that might be a lost art by now.
Right? I know, it's...
There's
Because I tried to have that
Mm-hmm.
with the first chase scene. The first chase scene was designed not to kill you, but it was designed for you to see that you were going to be chased. So that you would know in the future when it happened in a more dangerous environment, you'd recognize the situation and be like, run away from that. But
Nah, bro,
unfortunately, that didn't seem to
Nah.
that didn't seem to do what I intended it to do and teach the people who got there that. But again, I only have a small few pool of people who I actually seen play the game.
Yeah.
So maybe more people got it than didn't.
I don't know.
I hope that's the case, because I mean, I didn't see many comments on the page about people not beating the game. I only seen like 2 people. I'm only aware of 2 people who didn't beat the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I think most people figured it out because, I mean, even like you said, it pretty much leads you to where you're supposed to go. When you talk to the characters, they pretty much tell you, hey, you should go sleep on the couch. Hey, I lost my key. Yeah. I guess speaking on like the intuitiveness, hand holding and playtesting, I've been reading like a bunch of like books and like article stuff online with like game design and all that. And when I looked at playtesting, they were saying like if you want to, get like a really good scope of things, have like a group of people that actually play games play it, and then people who don't play games at all try it. And then you try to find as close of a balance as possible between making it intuitive or trying to stay away from hand holding and I guess the extreme of we don't tell you what the hell to do at all.
Right. It's like Elden Ring. It's like a From Software thing.
Yeah. But that one you die to learn though.
Yeah.
But see, it's funny too because like I enjoy those kinds of games, but at the same time, I feel like I've always been extremely critical about the you die to learn format, like the Cat Mario.
Yeah.
Like it always goes back to Cat Mario.
But you love Cat Mario.
I beat Cat Mario.
See, you love Cat Mario.
But the thing was, like, I found it to be a situation where it's like, this is not a hard game. Like, it was a rage game way back in the day. It was hilarious to watch all the YouTubers, fail and get mad at the game and whatnot. But it's like, it was not a functionally hard game. It was a memorization game. Yeah. And it was just, you would move forward and you would die. And then it's like, okay, this killed me. Avoid that. Then you would die 3 steps later, and then you would just die 20 times, and then you would understand what the level was, and you would pass through it no issue. And I always thought that was kind of bad game design.
Yeah.
Like, it was good for a troll. I understand that that's what the game was designed to do. But in terms of, like, normal games, that you shouldn't do that. The player should be able to read what's happening and respond to it without feeling like they needed to die. And now I know FromSoft, they love to have their unbeatable first boss, which I think that's an exception to me because that really sets the tone of what you're getting into.
Right.
I think Elden Ring did kind of pull a little bit of a dick move with the Tree Sentinel because they had their unbeatable boss, and then it's like, okay, we did our shtick. You died to the first boss because you always, by the story, need to die anyway. And then you say, okay, here's the real game, here's the real tutorial, yada yada. Then you step outside and there's another boss that's just like that, who's gonna like basically one-shot you. It's like, well, what the heck, man? I already went through that.
No. Again, I need to drive it closer to home.
Right, I thought that was a little cheeky. I don't know. I didn't know how I felt about it. I mean, I made sure to beat him before I fought any other enemy in the game. But still, like... And that was like an hour-long challenge of I need to beat the first enemy of the game. And
you did.
I don't know. Different design choices, I think, fit in some scenarios and not others. That one I thought was questionable. It was funny. It made for good YouTube content, though. I will say that.
My first and only real experience, like playing, not watching, but playing a Dark Souls game was when Dark Souls 3 came out. But I had the flu. So I was stuck at home. And my brother was like, hey, you want to play this game? And I don't know why the hell I decided to play Dark Souls 3 when I had the flu and medicated. And I just remember it. The way I remember that game was like, it pissed me off more that I would forget that I was sick. Like I was playing, I was like, God damn it, I'm dying again, and I was like, wait, I'm sick. But I don't know. I thought it was good. Like you said, dying to learn. My main game, I guess, learning that is like Ninja Gaiden, and I die so much in that game. And then we even found the part where like if you fall on this one cliff, you cannot get back up. Like
Yeah.
I was shocked. I was like, wow, if you do this once, you're basically dead.
Yeah, Ninja Gaiden was. I mean, those were like arcade style games. So that they were designed to eat your tokens.
Yeah.
And pass your duration with difficulty because they could only fit 6 levels on
Yeah.
the bridge.
This is how we stretch out 5 minutes to 3 hours.
Yeah, no, I remember Ninja Gaiden, especially the first one, definitely like pissed me off like quite a bit when I first played it. As did because I've only actually played 2 of the games. I played the first one and I played whatever the one on PS3 was. I think it was Sigma, and that game I also did not enjoy. I beat that game out of spite because I wasn't going to let the game be better than me. To me, it wasn't a fun game, but I was also probably. If I returned to it, I'm sure I would be much better at it now that I've played games like, Sekiro and Elden Ring and such. And
I know one way. I know one way we can solve the graphics problem. We can give them the best graphics ever. If we just film ourselves doing things and turn everything into a QTE, they cannot complain.
I mean, that is a possibility.
That is a real possibility. I mean, then now we're regressing in time back to those arcade games, like the Western shooters.
Yeah.
Where they did exactly that. Where it was like, if you shot the guy, then it would go to like a FMV of the guy falling over, and if not, it would go to like another FMV of him shooting you, and like game over.
Like
that would be kind of a funny kind of game to make, but.
Yeah, like you could make a visual novel / QTE fest, and it's all shot like on film. They cannot question those graphics because that's in real life.
Right. Yeah. Wow. Was this made on Unreal Engine?
Yeah, it's
top notch.
We got Unreal Engine 6. It's
I think that overall the experience for this was, I would say, far more positive than negative.
Yeah.
I mean, every other game jam that I've done, there's been some criticisms, and this was obviously no different. I feel like when it comes down to the ratio of who liked it versus who didn't, this one was the most in our favor. The very first jam I didn't really get much traction at all. Like, I mean, I got a couple comments on it, but very few compared to this one and Empty Canvases. Empty Canvases comment section was just filled with game too hard. This one was mostly that the people enjoyed it, and a couple people who found it unintuitive. But hey, I'll take it. Like, I feel like I came off as like really critical of our critics early on in this discussion. It's like, no, it's important to know what people do and don't understand. Some people, well, one guy in particular was very not, I wouldn't say not helpful with his criticism, but very uncouth with how he talked about it. He was basically just like, oh yeah, this game sucks, carry on. I'm going to post 3 different links to my YouTube channel in your comments.
Yeah.
But, I mean, aside from that,
I remember the one person said, I like this game, but it made me depressed, lol.
yeah, I've seen that too. That was quite funny. It's like, hey, we hit the theme on the head. A lot of people, especially anybody who's like old enough to have an office job who played the game, they're like, oh yes, I feel this at a visceral level.
I liked how you were able to do the cutscenes between the stages, where like it would show in black and then the writing would come and then you get like the sounds.
Oh yeah.
I like that.
I do wish. So there was the second time that happened. you still had character control. And some of the dialogue didn't line up perfectly from what your character said before that transition happened. And you could like walk away and almost like proceed through the level while the fade to black happened. That was something that I do wish I had changed. But I did like that setup of passing the time. That way you didn't have to be doing a million little tasks to feel like you passed a full 8-hour day. But I also didn't want you to just do like 2 things and say, oh yeah, your entire workday's done, because that doesn't really feel realistic.
Yeah.
Like I wanted this to feel like a real office job.
I think it did. It succeeded, because it's not supposed to feel great. It's not supposed to be like, oh yeah, this is awesome. It's like, no.
Yeah, no, I completely understand. That fun rating wasn't. Honestly, I'm surprised the fun rating of our game was where it is. Because, again, there was 1,644 entries, and we ranked 685th for fun. In a game that was not designed to be fun.
Wait, how many games were in this?
1,644. Yeah. we were just under the top third mark for fun. On a game that was designed to be more depressing and mundane than anything else. That to me is really fun. Like I would have accepted 1,000 rating or lower.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, I get it. When we were having the first discussions about this theme, and the idea of the game, you guys brought it up, and we're like, yeah, we should make a game like this. I'm like, that's a really cool idea, but how do you make a video game out of that? That's not fun. That's why. It's like, we'll make it anyway.
Yeah.
And people apparently thought it was fun enough.
Because Josh, you even said like, man, I'm gonna play this game, but then I'm gonna sit there like, this is my life.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like, you get home from living that reality, you sit down and play the game, it's like, oh,
I'm back out.
I'm just being reminded of what I did, 2 hours ago, and now I'm sad. Now I'm gonna go to bed and do it again.
It's like some guy going home playing with his little Figma set of himself in an office building toy. Like, I'm gonna go be myself.
Yeah.
Man.
It's like a SpongeBob episode where it's just him incepting himself playing with toys of
with
himself.
toys of himself.
Yeah.
Damn. That's wild. I think people must have really liked the fax machine fight.
Right, yeah. Because between that and running away in the third level is the only real gameplay, let's be real.
Yeah. Because everything else is world building, like, okay, this is what we do, A to B, yay.
Yeah, the people who criticized the gameplay, 100% fair. Like, some people are like, the gameplay is minimalistic. It's like, yes, it is, period. Like, the hard stop, that is a correct statement.
This is not real gameplay. Well, yeah, the theme, like.
Yeah, this is an experience more than a game. It is a commentary on life.
It's like, you're just glad we didn't make this game called Orientation. I think that would have been hell.
Oh my god. You're sitting in a room with 5 other people, 2 of whom are snoring loudly, and you just have to keep on pressing a button to keep yourself awake, while also, like, using another button to, like, answer really mundane questions.
It's like the person's eyes are closing, you gotta keep hitting A to make them open.
It's like Manuel Samuel, but instead of breathing, it's stay awake.
Oh no. But damn. Yeah, after we had finished the game jam, I went back to work on some more music. I did finish the soundtrack. Like the full version with all the music. Yeah. That comes out April 1st.
Oh, nice. The perfect April Fool's Day release. The soundtrack for this game.
Yeah, and then I went back to working on Godot and Unity. Mostly like playing around with like assets and like certain codes and scripts. I guess just to get more acquainted with things. Because on this game, I didn't really do any coding. I mostly just like did music and sound design. But I did want to get more acquainted with at least like basic stuff like movement, like where characters go, how to interact with things.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's important that everybody at least has a general sense of how all of this stuff, works together and be able to do, at least to a small degree, what every other person does. Like, I mean, I had at least made the music for my first solo project, but I'm nowhere near as versed in all the stuff as you. Everything I made was done in Bosca CL, which is a super minimalistic program. But yeah, it would definitely be good to have multiple people who know how to do like the programming sides of things for bigger games. Which it kind of shows like the limitations of smaller groups, because everybody should have their specialized thing, because there's so many things that go into making a game. The bare bones are art, sound design, and programming. But it's so difficult for like one person to be solely responsible for each of those things.
Yeah.
Because the guy who does the art might not know how like the resolution's been set up over here, or like how things are scaled, so then things might come out a little wonky because they don't they're not assembling it.
Yeah.
And then the sound design person might not know how how long a clip needs to be for something, because they don't know what that looked like in the animation. And then the person programming is just like, how do I adjust these things to make it sound right, because they sound good, like say a music clip sounds good when it's imported, but then sometimes when comparing it to clips that you've already set up, it's like, all right, now I have to adjust like the volumes and such, or like loop times, and trying to get loops to like happen smoothly and such.
Yeah.
It helps for everybody to know a little bit about everybody else's job to make things mesh smoother. And honestly, I think we did a very good job of that. Like, those are scenarios that could happen, but I honestly think that we avoided that a lot for the most part. Like, I didn't have any trouble really scaling anything that you made to fit into the scene.
Yeah.
Oh, hello, cat.
Watch out.
And almost all of the sound design like fit in just like straight plug and play. The only thing was like the doors, and I think I had to adjust like the volume on a couple of the clips, but it really wasn't anything like significant at all. It wasn't like I had to go in and actually like basically retune the ends of songs to make them loop well in the context of the scene. Which is something that I could see being an issue, because I had that issue when I was making my own stuff. Like, for my first game, I spent probably more time trying to make a piece of music loop well than I did actually making the melody of it.
Yeah. Yeah, because like I didn't even get to clean up the stuff until like a week later after the game jam was done. And even then, like, I was still finding things that I could have changed or did differently or make it sound more sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was another thing. But I would say the game jam definitely gives you a crash course on experience, because one, they basically say, okay, here's the theme, work with it. Because that takes some weight off, because now you're like, okay, this is what we're aiming for, rather than looking in the sky like, what the hell am I going to make?
Yeah. Granted, the theme that they gave us
Did not work well for a really, I don't know.
Yeah, that almost was looking into the sky and being like, what do we pick out of this incredibly expansive thing? Like, that's something that I found that, I mean, I think we already talked about this, but just like the people who tend to vote for the theme seem to like to do as broad categories and vague existential things as is possible, rather than picking something that's like actually pinpointed on this is what you're going for.
True. Because I guess in this case it was like Chaos Part 2, because not real chaos. Like the other stuff I think is narrow, right?
Yeah, like it could have been like for this one, there was something like, I think one of them was like the next chapter or whatever. So it's like, okay, that's obviously, picking up from something, or, maybe a story style thing, or it was, something that had to do with, I think, like, I don't know, delivery or something. Like, way more focused things than just not real.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like, and I guess another thing is, like, while you're making a game in a game jam, you start having ideas for other games too while you're working on it. Because, like, I had the two already, the visual novel kind of thing, which is like, was it Jump to Conclusions? And then the one I told you, Run, Don't Walk, just because I kept watching people not run.
Right. Yeah, I like that idea about the Run, Don't Walk, though. Like, that's pretty funny.
Yeah, I think the part with the maze is really... the part with the maze and then seeing people not run made me think of that game's like just a whole side-scrolling obstacle course. You're just trying to get out, but then there's like distractions and stupid things to make you not like do it.
Yeah, because that's kind of how that was set up. It was like, if you went through the wrong door, it would take you all the way back to like an earlier part, and you just having to be like, oh crap, like, let me...
Let me get up.
You have to respond on the fly while still keeping moving very quickly because, in that level the enemy walks through walls. Mm-hmm. It's like run. Don't get lost, but also, you don't really have much time to think.
Mm-hmm.
Also, just had some of my favorite rooms in the entire game.
Yeah, it did look cool, so I do hope whoever played it managed to at least get to the end.
Yeah, because especially now, granted, there was one of the rooms. Unfortunately, like my favorite room, I would say, or at least tied for my favorite room in the game, was actually optional because there was two forking paths in the last level where one of them actually took you closer to the end than the other path. And the one room that you would skip if you went through that path was arguably one of the coolest looking rooms because it was the one that had a bunch of floating chairs that were like an overlay.
Yeah.
And, like, they were all set up as if they were like, different distances from the camera. It just looked nice, I thought, considering like the overall aesthetic of the game. It was one of the few rooms that like was really dynamic in just like its idle presentation.
Mm-hmm.
I did also just really like the boss room that was like broken in half and like falling into the void.
Yeah.
I liked how the room came out.
Also, the feeling of like dread and panic to get out. Like, I would even liken it to when you're trying to get out of work without being seen by a manager, so they don't like ask you more questions or give you more job work to do. So I'm trying to get out.
Yeah. Exactly. Because I mean that was part of the idea behind it. Like the more metaphorical aspect of it was, there was no monster. It was just the guy's perception of the people around him and the stresses around him. So the monster really was more of just a representation of, like a boss or a manager who you don't want to have to talk to because they might pile more work onto you or, yell at you because you didn't do something good enough or whatever. And it's just, the fear of avoidance.
Yeah.
Or the tendency to avoid things that give you those stresses. Like that's what the monster was meant to represent. So yeah, that fits perfectly with what was going on.
Yeah, the part where you guys put in where the monster shows up the first time, and then when it finally gets to you, you like wake up and the person at work is like, "Hey, why are you running around like crazy? Like, are you okay?"
Right. Yeah, it's like it wasn't anybody chasing you; it was just another dude. But you're like so like caught up in your own like bad headspace that you like made things into something way more like dangerous than it was. He was just a dude. And then you get out to the real world and you realize that, your mental problems were not tied to your workplace and that the rest of the world is probably just as bad as where you currently are.
Yeah.
and you just realize that you're stuck where you are, and it's sadness, and then the game ends. How do you write such depressing stories?
I did not. It wasn't me. I didn't even write it. It just happened that way. I just took John as inspiration.
Well, I mean, all of my other game ideas except for one are not sad. Wait, did I say that right? No, god damn it. I mean, there's only one game idea that I have that has some sadness, and that's only like kind of towards the end. And it's not really sad. I think it's more reflective of like at the end of the day, kind of like with Resignation, like you have to choose like which is really going to make you happy. And sometimes, you know, the responsible thing isn't always the happiest thing.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
but you but you wouldn't see that until like the end. Like I guess there would be a hint of like the game might not have the happy ending you want, but it'll have the most realistic ending.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That was for Moonlight. Like I already have the ending kind of set up in the beginning, but like the whole middle part is still kind of up in the air because I couldn't decide if I was gonna make it a 2D action game or a top-down 2D game.
Mm.
I couldn't decide from there what it would become. And then the other two games are just like funny games, you know, Jump to Conclusion, Run Don't Walk. It's just games to make you laugh and be like, what the hell's happening?
Yeah, most of the games that I've come up with that I want to really flesh out, that would probably be like full release games.
Mhm.
Most of them are not like terribly sad.
Yeah.
One of them I do want to be like an RPG that's pretty
Sad.
I don't think it's not so much sad. It's like to feel something, right?
Was that?
To feel something, right?
Yeah, like like I've been watching, you know, my wife play a lot of JRPGs lately,
Mm-hmm.
and the ones that I like the most, like one of my favorite series is the Breath of Fire series. Like those games tend to be a lot darker than you know certain other ones. Like I mean, some of Final Fantasy games can be pretty dark. You know, Dragon Quest not so much, but like Final Fantasy IX has some pretty dark undertones to it. Like that game gets just depressing after a certain point, which I think is also like the best Final Fantasy in the series. So I guess I just like, you know, those depressing, rough, you know, games. But yeah, Breath of Fire tends to, you know, not skirt around really like messed up, you know, situations where it's like, hey, not like, you know, sometimes bad things happen to good people, and you know, the world, you know, war has very real personal, like, you know, effects on people, and you get to see all of that kind of stuff firsthand. Especially Breath of Fire 4, very heavily like inspired by certain events from like World War II. It's obviously a Japanese game, and they basically have straight up stand-ins for like Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and you get to see like all of the fallout of that and just like the personal damages of, you know, nuclear war and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, seeing games like that, it started to inspire me to make games that are more realistic, you know, like, and between that and playing on the idea of like, anytime somebody gives you a quest in a game and they're like, oh, you know, this is happening, and it's like a big deal, like, and it's obviously very storyline wise time pressing. You know, you think Final Fantasy VII or something like that, where it's like, you know, the meteor's gonna crash anytime we need to do something, and then you could go dick off and, you know, raise chocobos for the next, you know, 20 days and, you know, just never get around to it. But the story's not gonna advance because that's not how the game's set up. And it's artificial urgency.
Yeah.
So I want to incorporate more realistic urgency.
Would you put it closer to Majora's Mask or be more lenient?
That's a good question.
It's like, you need to hurry up and do this now.
the way I plan on doing it is pretty much taking the way I would probably set up the times for anything like that. Because I mean, not the whole game is going to be on a timer. But anytime you're like introduced to a concept of something being very time pressing, I want to play through it and see how long it takes me, having made it, to get through it. And then I'll probably tack on an extra 30 to 50% of the time that it took, depending on how long the level is.
Yeah.
That way, it's like, because I don't want people to fail.
Yeah.
But I want people to need to address it with a certain sense of urgency. And if you fail, then, that has consequences on the story,
Yeah.
Characters I'm going to make it very clear that characters are not immortal. Plot armor has very little effect here.
Yeah.
So, I guess you could say games like that at least can end up being very sad. Especially because I do expect that, there will be, NPCs who end up dying off who, people like. It's just the way... Because, I mean, in my opinion, most good stories, it's not all, sunshine and rainbows for everybody.
Yeah.
Because if there's no meaningful conflict, if there's no emotional investment, then, it's not as effective of a story. But some people would say that, what I find to be a good story leans maybe a little bit too hard into that.
Yeah.
Say, I wanted to play a light and jolly game. It's like, well, this might not be for you. But some people like those. Some people like the really... I mean, I would never say I would go so far as, like, the grimdark aesthetic, though. Like, I don't like that stuff. That's just... Because at that point, depression for depression's sake isn't really
not
interesting.
Yeah.
There needs to be agency. There needs to be the possibility of a good outcome for you to be compelled to try to get that.
Yeah.
Like, I think that was one of my biggest issues with... And this is a whole... I want to make this into a whole other video, but just, like, the conciseness of it. Dark Souls 1. It's very good for what it does. As a piece of art, it works extremely well. In terms of a story that a lot of people are going to want to engage in, especially like if you're not diving into the super ridiculously obtuse lore of it, I don't find it a very compelling game because you're basically in a grimdark world. Like, everybody you meet is just like depressed and dying, and the world is largely not very pretty. And it's just a depressing, setting. And I feel like that becomes, I guess, maybe not overwhelming, but when that's all you're experiencing, it makes the game less fun to experience, in a long form setting.
Yeah.
Like, I've played Dark Souls 1 more than once, but I've never beaten it. Not because it was too hard, but because it lost me partway through each time. Be it just I didn't enjoy certain mechanics because it was also kind of a janky mess of a game. But then also just like, once I had been exposed to how the game ends on YouTube and such, it's like, I don't feel compelled to go through this.
Yeah. I get that.
Like other games like Sekiro and Elden Ring, and even like Dark Souls 3, I feel like kind of fixed that a little bit. Well, I say that about Dark Souls 3. Dark Souls 3 fixed the aesthetic part of it, in my opinion. But in terms of like the whole grimdark feel to it, no, it was still very much there.
Because like for me,
they're art pieces more than they are story-driven games, in my opinion.
Yeah, like for me, I guess on like a opposite kind of happier end of games. With Pokemon Sun and Moon, it's like I already saw what to expect. I saw how hand-holdy it was. And then when I found out what the ending is, because with Pokemon, there really isn't much of a story to write off of. So it's like I didn't feel, again, compelled to either finish that game. Because
I could definitely see that.
Because if something drags you,
Yeah. There's no meaningful villain arc in that game. Like, who the villain is gets dropped on you right at the end of the game. It's not compelling. It's not convincing, honestly, in my opinion.
Mm.
Like, the whole thing is just kind of like going through. Like the majority of the story is just you playing Pokemon. You know, you just going to fight gyms and other people doing the same thing. And even like the villain team isn't a villainous team at all. They're just over aggressive fans of one of your friends. It's like kind of weird how they decided to do that. So yeah, you're right. If it, you know, in this opposite direction, if a game is just not aggressive enough, it's also not interesting. You need to have that balance. You know, like with Final Fantasy IX, you know, I think it's a perfect example of that. The game literally balances, you know, literal genocide and, you know, watching, you know, war crimes and, you know, acts of just, you know, civilian murder in the streets from, you know, aggressing armies with, you know, jokes about having to hide in, you know, a bag of pickles and, you know, a light-spirited, pervy main character who just, you know, kind of makes light of a lot of the world for most of the time.
The writing is engaging.
When to be serious and it knows when to be fun.
Yeah, it's engaging because you're watching this happen. You're like, okay, I want to know what happens next. Like, I want to see what happens.
Yeah, you get to like enough of the people who are the main cast that you want to see them through to what they're doing. But at the same time, the world around them is, you know, being devastated. And you're like, well, how is everybody going to handle going through this? How is this going to resolve? You know, sometimes things end well for people. Sometimes it doesn't. But at the end of the day, you want to see what happens. And yeah, if you get a game like Pokemon Sun and Moon, you know what's going to happen. Because it's not... I mean, the game makes it pretty clear right from the start. There's not going to be anything terrible that happens here.
Yeah.
And then, you know, in Dark Souls, you know nobody's going to be happy by the end of this because that's just not how this world is set up. So, yeah, it is important to learn to walk that fine line.
Yeah, and I guess that's a thing that I had with, like, with Moonlight. Like, I had the character set up and stuff. I had, like, the idea of what I wanted to do. But it was, like, the way going about it where it's not, like... For one, where it's not, like, stupid, I guess, where it's not believable, and then the part where it's not super depressing, because I didn't want it to be depressing. I just wanted it to be something that, like, people would play this and be like, okay, you know, sometimes, like, maybe I need to be serious. I have to think about, like, what I'm actually doing with my life, or, like, how it affects other people. But not in, like, a depressing way, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, throwing in a healthy dose of realism can go a long way. It doesn't need to be overwhelming. It doesn't need to be, you know, it doesn't need to drag things down. But making the player think about what they're doing is definitely, like, an important thing. And yeah, gray decisions are honestly the most compelling things. You know, it's another reason why I love Breath of Fire so much. There are many missions that you do where it's like, who's right here? There is no right. There's just option A and option B. And even if you don't, as the player, don't really have the agency to do that, the story just puts you in this position. It's like you have to carry through with this. It's like you might not feel good about it, but at the same time, you understand why it needs to be done. You know, like the very Breath of Fire 3 is probably my favorite game to play.
Is this on Super Nintendo?
What's that?
Is it on Super Nintendo?
No, that was for PS1, actually.
Oh, PS1, okay.
Yeah, 2 is the one on Super Nintendo. Like, one of the first missions of Breath of Fire 3 has you go hunt down this beast that's been, like, slaughtering all the town's cattle, and it's already, like, a bad harvest year. And you go and you do this, but then it's like, okay, yeah, but you find out that it was just, like, kind of this starving thing that was trying to take care of its cubs, and it's like, it's literally supposed to directly juxtapose, like, your characters being basically orphans and small-time thieves who just go into the town and steal what they can for themselves. It's like, this is you. And, you know, the townspeople had you go kill this thing because, A, it was being problematic for them, but it was also a point of self-reflection. It's like, hey, you know, things need to survive, yes, but sometimes, in order for one thing to survive, another thing needs to die. And it's like, well, it's an important lesson to learn, but you don't feel good, walking into that den and seeing like the, starved dead cubs of this thing that you just killed. It's like, a healthy dose of realism.
Yeah.
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 Anyway.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on the game jam?
No,
I think I've said just about everything that I had to say about it.
Mm-hmm.
About you?
I don't know. I think once I finish this next record, I'm like more on board to start something else.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm probably
we're
gonna
done, with the recording of this, we'll talk specifics.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna try to make a demo of a game, at least with like the basic movements and stage design, so that way I can show you guys it.
Yeah.
But I mean, either way, for people watching, we're gonna make another game.
I hope so.
We will. It just takes time. That's the thing. It takes time. I think time is like the biggest factor.
Yeah, especially now that we're not going to be operating under the constraints of a game jam, we will be able to take healthier times to work on things. We're not going to be, working 8, 10, 12, 14 hours a day on it as sometimes occurred.
It took me forever to readjust my sleep schedule.
Oh, I'm sure. Oh, God, yeah. Yeah, you were up at absurd hours for when you work. It's like, John, it's 5 a.m. You go to work at 7. What are you doing?
I know. I went to work. I was like, damn, I really came back to this. My chair is broken. My monitor don't work. Oh, God. This is the bonus stage. Help. Going back outside.
You had to play test the game except by living it.
Plus, yes, yeah. But I think this was a really good experience. It really established, I think, the team, especially like in a real world platform. Because look, Josh, you now have fans.
Yeah, I know.
You have fans. Like,
I understand. Oh man. Yeah, it's like I don't know what to do with them. It's like, shoot, now people are expecting things of me. What?
no, you have 4 times as many people expecting things now.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, my followership went up. Yeah. I'd say, well, yeah, I can say 400% because you followed me before the jam, so I only had a point of 1. And now we went up.
It's gross. What about you, Jose? What are you thinking? What are you thinking?
About
What you're doing.
what I'm doing? Well, the hard part is like, I wish I didn't have to have a full-time job.
Yeah, no kidding.
That really just tosses, that really grinds my gears, as they say. Also wrench up in the engine. No, I would like to just I would like to practice.
Keep swinging at it.
The way I would like to do a thing is like, I wouldn't mind making a small game every month and a big game every year.
That sounds healthier. That sounds healthier.
Or at least a game every 2 months.
Yeah.
And a big game every year. That's what I would like to try to do in like 2022.
And what engine?
I mean, it'd still be Unity, but I want to
Unity.
learn 3D modeling. I would want to know how Unreal works. I would like to know how the coding works for both of them.
I did download Unreal. With 3D modeling, is it Blender we'd use, or can you do the 3D modeling inside of?
Blender is the most standard one that people use, but I know there's other options.
Yeah.
I just don't remember what they are. But I know that most people use Blender, but I've seen enough other people use a different program.
Yeah. So, I mean, we'll see. I mean, that's kind of the direction I'm heading towards to right now.
Okay.
I just like some better hardware right now.
Yeah.
I think my computer is about to explode. Not this one, my PC, my desktop. It's a little old, and I keep abusing it.
Mine.
Yeah, you need to get a new one too.
Mine's older than yours.
Yeah.
I would say on the plus side, constraints make you think outside the box.
Yeah, they have to.
They really they push you because really looking at it now. When did we start? Like almost 2 years ago.
Yeah.
We had no games. We've got 2 games. Josh has at least 3 games. That's kind of incredible when you think about it. Like that's still consistent.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not as consistent as I'd like, but it is still a rate of consistency.
Yeah, it's a step in the right direction.
In between as well.
Yeah.
That grossly unnecessarily complicated.
That's because you made it complicated.
Well, I know.
You added stuff to it to make it more complicated. You had a small code based Pong. All right, it was not huge.
And then I made Pong way too complicated.
Yeah.
He made Pong what we see in our imagination would play as a computer.
Instead of working on the coding for that, you should try making it look nicer. That could be your next project. Like finesse it. You know what I'm saying?
I think
just like graphically.
Yeah.
I think with
I did
graphics,
spend a lot of time on the graphics on that, but not everything came out nice regardless.
Right. No, still it was good, but it's like fucking make it like Tetris Effect. Have
what
you seen Tetris Effect?
flashy and all that.
It's flying everywhere.
Oh
Yeah.
god.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds terrifying.
Well, yeah, that's the goal. I was just learning phase right now.
Yeah, I checked out some books. I gotta read them. It sucks because like work really does take so much time, and I have to fight to stay awake after work.
Yeah. And all our vacations going away.
Yeah, for us, yeah.
Yeah.
What happened to you?
That's gonna be fun.
All our vacation and sick is gonna go away.
Yeah, all of our paid time off is gonna end up getting wiped out soon because of a company change or a company ownership of our contract changing.
So, hold on. Does that mean you have to use it or you lose it, or can you cash out some of it?
Well, sick is use it or lose it.
Yeah.
Vacation, it gets bought out.
Yeah, we'll at least get paid out for any vacation time we don't use. But yeah, we're whenever this happens, because we don't even know exactly what's happening or when.
Yeah.
But like whenever that happens, yeah, all of our stuff's gonna get zeroed out. So that's gonna limit us as to when we can like make available time slots. So that's kind of irritating. Especially, I mean, I hope they keep seniority, but I doubt it because I just hit 5 years, which was like a whole bonus.
Are you pointing at me, Jose? You pointing at me?
Yeah, no, they'll keep you in seniority.
I don't know about that.
Well,
Not
okay,
always.
they can't change the CBA.
They can't change the CBA, but they can like take away seniority bonuses.
I mean, I'll find a new job.
We're not going to find anything around us that pays as good as we make for what we do. It's just not realistic.
You never know. Maybe Boeing needs corrosion. Maybe the library needs corrosion.
From considering we based resignation off of his life at the library, I don't think I want to work there.
You never know. It might got some good benefits. It's got a fax machine.
I wanted to get rid of the fax machine and hide it. Because our lines for that are not too great. I don't know how they wired it, but yeah. So I don't know. I guess 2022. We have one game down. I'm sure we can make one more game this year.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I would like to have at least one like full game, like
One hundo.
like you said, you know, maybe a game a year, depending on how big the game. Of course, it might take more or less time than that.
Yeah.
The first game I want to make, because I'm pretty committed as to which one I think should be the first, like, big game idea that I have that I want to see fully made. I hope it doesn't take a full year to do. Granted, we're already in the middle of March.
Yeah.
So, you know,
That's 3 months in.
yeah, we're already 3 months in, so okay, that leaves us with about 9 months.
Yeah.
So yeah, by the end
The
of
game is
year,
called Birth. No. Sorry. Sorry. Continue. I'm so.
I would love to have at least that one game done by the end of the year.
Yeah.
At least.
What?
Just write out the whole thing, man.
What style? 2D, 3D, 16-bit, modern.
3D visual novel.
I mean, we could do that. That'd be easy. You just take pictures of everybody and then put the text. Be like, hey, graphics are insane.
Best graphics you ever seen. As realistic as it gets. Yeah, no, I want it to be like, a very well, I want it to be, 2D, side-scrolling, hand-drawn.
Yeah.
I explicitly want it to have a very hand-drawn aesthetic. Because I want it to be based on, like, basically characters of a book.
Yeah.
So I want it to have almost that, like, illustrated book aesthetic.
Yeah, I think for me, like, the reason I gravitate towards 2D a lot is because I like the idea of the game's graphics also utilizing your imagination. Because that's a thing I've faced a lot, like, playing the Final Fantasy VII, in the remake. Like, I like the remake. I'm enjoying it. I'm playing through it. But at the same time, it's like, I can't imagine things like I could in the old game. Where, like, what I'm seeing happen in my head is much better than what's in the game and even the remake. But, you know. That's probably nostalgia mostly, but...
Yeah, one day I swear I will finish the video that I wrote out about Final Fantasy VII. I swear that needs to be the first project I need to. I wrote this thing almost 2 years ago at this point, and I still haven't made the freaking video of it. Just me like ranting about Final Fantasy VII.
Well, I mean,
I still to this day keep on coming up with more things to add to that.
I mean, I know a thing we could do is, like, if you guys wanted, like, you know how we would do the speedruns, which would probably be a cool thing to do again at some point?
Yes.
Is, like, if we found a game, we played through it, and then we had a discussion like this about it afterwards,
Okay,
like,
yeah.
What did you think of it? Basically just like what we did now. Because I think it's a little more feasible with some stuff, because you don't have to write anything, you just kind of talk.
Yeah, have a casual, like, just discussion table about it. Yeah, I mean, I'm completely down for that. Yeah, there are certain things that I want to dive really deep into, but for a lot of things, this is a perfect format to just get ideas out there.
Yeah.
I also really do want to, go through some of the Game Jam games that had been submitted and, maybe contact some of the devs and,
Give them a
hear what they have to say as well.
Yeah.
It's a fun idea. And it would also help network, and who knows, maybe if we really click with people, we might even expand our team a little bit.
Yeah.
Even if it is just for single projects.
True. That'd be cool.
Yeah, I think that's
all right.
all I have to talk about right now. We've been talking for quite some time, so
I think it's a good stopping point. I'm glad we did this, and to everyone watching, I hope that you guys had fun. And our game, we'll even put the link to Empty Canvases so you can actually get that Easter egg.
Yeah, we could link to both of them just for anybody who happens to watch this who didn't play our game and just wants to see what it's about.
Yeah.
Just remember, running is a function.
It is a function.
As is kicking.
You gotta shift your ass into gear. You get it?
Yeah, exactly. So I had multiple people be like, shift is a little weird to push for running. I'm like, hey, that's the only button I've ever used on a keyboard to run. But yeah, shifting yourself into gear, that's a good one. I like that.
Okay, everybody. So we'll see you later on the next video. Thanks for watching.
Yeah.
Bye.
Take care.